Welcome back, Camille. I've been wanting to film this video for a while and discuss with you guys the trauma of growing up online on social media. I feel like in doing so, I need to first acknowledge the privilege that it is to make an income on social media. Just talking about the negative side of it without acknowledging the privilege that it is a little arrogant. But I just wanted to talk about my experience and the things that I sacrificed without really knowing that's what I was signing up for. That's what I was going to have to sacrifice. And looking back on my experience, having really grown up on social media with hundreds of thousands of eyes watching my every move, from ages 16 till now, it was very traumatizing for me. Any single person who gets any kind of attention on social media knows that there's gonna be hate comments. It's gonna be hard. There's some parts about it that just suck. That's just the reality of it. But I think there's certain situations where it goes from, oh yeah, I get hate comments, like it's rough, it's not fun to see, but whatever, I can ignore it. And then there's some more extreme cases where things just get really intense and there's a lot of scrutiny and a lot of trauma that comes with that experience. And we've heard it a lot, like from child stars and people in Hollywood, and I'm sure we're gonna continue to hear it as children of family vloggers grow up and come forward and share their experiences. Having that many eyes on you at a young age, there's no way it's not gonna do some damage psychologically. And that was a huge part of the reason why I decided to distance my kids from my social media. I don't show them on here nearly as much as I used to, and that's because I don't want to subject them to that. And as far as they grow up, when they get older, I've decided as their parent that I don't want them on social media, especially with young people. It can be very, very toxic, and it's gonna be a decision that I make way far in the future when they're well into their teen years that comes with a very serious conversation. Letting my kids have access to social media is not going to be a decision that I'm going to take lightly at all. And again, so much of that choice is based on what I've experienced. I started posting on social media, I think in 4th grade or 5th grade. So I would have been about 10 or 11 years old. I got my first Instagram account and no one was monitoring what I was posting at all, which it was fine because it was just a random 11-year-old's account. Like, I don't think there was many people looking at it to begin with. Luckily, the only harm that was really done was that I posted some very cringy things very publicly that are still there. I think back then, with social media being so new, no one's parents really knew the dangers of letting an 11-year-old have free reign on Instagram. There's predators out there, but no one was thinking that way at the time, and like, who can really blame them? But yeah, I've been posting on social media pretty actively since I was very young, and when I was 16, I started my YouTube channel, and I was pregnant, and I wanted to document that. I very quickly started to gain a lot of followers. And you know, there was people who were being supportive, there was a lot of positive comments, but there was also just a lot of like hate for the sake of hating on a pregnant teenager. It was all pretty harmless, honestly, for the most part. It was like, oh, kids these days don't know how to use condoms. Oh my gosh, you're like so little, you're so young, you're so mature. And you know, that was no different than the bullying I was receiving at school as a pregnant teenager. Like, I heard a lot of the same things, a ton of talk about like, oh my gosh, Cameron's pregnant, like, And so a lot of the comments were just kind of the same type of energy, just like, wow, really, you're 16 and you're pregnant? Like, what a disgrace. I used to be the type of person that if somebody was saying something negative about me, I had to hear it. I needed to hear every little thing. I used to eavesdrop on my sister and her friends when I was little because I was paranoid that they were talking bad about me. And so I needed to hear their conversations and like make sure nothing bad was said. And when I did hear bad things being said about me, I was very sensitive. I took it very personally, and I really wasn't great at receiving criticism. I became very defensive, especially when it came to me being a teen mom. Like, again, even with the bullying at high school, I had to clap back, had to say my piece. I was like, me and my baby, we're gonna be just fine, and her dad loves me, and I couldn't just keep my mouth shut and be like, oh, yeah, they're talking about me, whatever. I had to defend my name. So naturally, me getting all this attention and in turn all of these hate comments was kind of a recipe for disaster. I did not have thick skin at all. Mental health is so important to me, and especially now that I'm older and know what steps need to be taken in order for me to remain mentally healthy, therapy is such a huge part of that. I'd like to thank BetterHelp for sponsoring today's video. In the last year, a lot of what I've been working on in therapy is changing my perspective and just trying to stay grounded in reality. My anxiety gets the best of me, and sometimes I can just spiral out of control. I've realized that the negative voice in my head is more often than not a voice that's mine. It's something that I've been told at a certain point in time, and it's just stuck. And it's almost like this echo chamber of negative comments. Sitting with a therapist and really questioning that voice, questioning where it's coming from. Who told me that? Why do I think that about myself? That's been a life-changing practice for me. BetterHelp makes starting therapy easier and much less intimidating for a lot of people. It lets you have a therapy session as a phone call, video chat, or even messaging, whatever's the most comfortable version of therapy for you. BetterHelp can match you to one of 30,000 therapists in their network based on your needs, preferences, and location, which gives you a wider range of expertise than what might be available in your city. To get started, you fill out a questionnaire that will ask you questions about what challenges you're going through and what kind of therapist you'd like. And then BetterHelp can match you to the therapist that's right for you. You can schedule therapy sessions at a time that's most convenient for you, and if you feel like your therapist isn't the right fit for you, you can switch at the click of a button with no extra costs. Join the 4 million people who have used BetterHelp to start living a happier, healthier life. Click the link in my description or go to betterhelp.com/Cam&Fam. Clicking that link supports my channel and also gives you 10% off your first month of BetterHelp, so you can connect with a therapist and see if it helps you. Thanks again to BetterHelp for sponsoring today's video. When I first started YouTube, I read every single comment obsessively, and over time the hate comments went from just hating on a teen mom because she's a teen mom to being a lot more personal and specific, and they started to hurt a lot more. I grew up with a mom who was very critical of me, and so it was that much more triggering to see the same types of things in my comments. Every little thing I did was picked apart, and I felt like I couldn't do anything right. I was being psychoanalyzed by complete strangers, and they really did start to make me feel like a terrible mother, partner, and person, when in reality, I was just a 17-year-old girl trying my best in a very difficult situation. Being almost 23 now, I look back on my 17-year-old self and I'm very proud of what she was able to accomplish, how well I held it together, how good of a mom I was at 17. It's not healthy for a teenager to hear that many opinions about themselves, whether it's positive or negative. Nothing about that is natural or normal. I think even as an adult, it's weird to receive that much feedback. That's way more than any normal person hears about themselves. And so especially for a teenage girl who's already pretty sensitive, there's no way it wasn't going to affect me. The negative comments started to give me real panic attacks, and the positive comments were boosting my ego. Yeah, I was getting a lot of hate, but I was also getting complimented all day, every day. And those compliments kind of went to my head. And you think maybe the positive comments and the negative comments would kind of cancel each other out. Like, I have all these people saying positive things and all these people saying negative things. Like, maybe in reality, I'm kind of somewhere in the middle. Maybe I'm not the greatest thing ever, but I also am not so bad. Instead, it festered into this complex I had about myself, where on the surface, I thought I was so great, but deep down, I had this dark, ugly feeling that was always there. It felt like a secret truth that I kept from myself. I believed deep down that I was a terrible person. I look back at the pressure I was under and just how young I really was, and I feel really bad for my teenage self. And as my daughter started to get older, I started to see negative comments about her as well. A toddler. They were reading into every little thing she did, normal behaviors for a toddler, and finding a way to make it circle back to the result of my awful parenting. When I got pregnant for a second time and started making content talking about my pregnancy, there was a ton of people claiming that it seemed like I just didn't care about my oldest daughter anymore. And this wasn't just a few one-off comments here and there. There were entire hate pages created about me, posting things like this. At the time, I was pregnant and hormonal, and the amount of hate that I was getting just destroyed me. The second I posted a video, I was going straight to the comments to see what was being said about me. I would scroll past the heaps of positive comments just to find the negative ones. I was seeking it out. I was almost addicted to it because it was fueling this negative self-belief. It was just validating that the way I felt about myself was true. And then I would cry in bed for the rest of the day. They would also say very awful things about my late husband. He was battling addiction at the time, and he would be high in the videos. Half the time, I didn't really even know if he was high or not when we were filming. A few people connected the dots and started to question what he was taking, what's going on with him, and other people just called him things like slow or stupid. There was a lot of people questioning his intelligence and just saying awful things about him. We were both so miserable by this time making these videos, but it's all we knew as far as providing for our family. We really felt as though we had no option but to keep going, keep posting, keep making money. Being that this had been our entire life since we were 16, we had no grasp on the real world. And looking back, I realized we could have stopped. We didn't need to keep going like that. We had enough money to take a break or to quit while we figure something else out and get it together. But again, all we had known by that time was making that amount of money, which we thought was a pretty normal amount of money. Yeah, this is what people make, this is what adults make, this is a normal income for a family of 3 about to be 4, and we genuinely thought we couldn't survive without making that amount of money. And if we stopped making that money, that we'd be screwed. And that just simply wasn't the case. Along with the pressure to provide was also the pressure to make everyone else happy, to keep posting for the ones who did genuinely enjoy our videos, to keep our image up, to keep the illusion up. But things got to a point where we eventually just couldn't keep it up anymore. We were separated and we didn't know how to explain that to our audience, so we just didn't post. And we stopped posting for 3 months. Even though things behind the scenes were so awful, I still felt pressured to stay in that relationship. Of course, because we just got married and we had 2 kids together, but also because our relationship was very public. I felt trapped. I couldn't fathom just leaving. The next video that I posted 3 months later was a video explaining that my husband had taken his life and that all this time he had been dealing with an addiction to pills. This obviously came out of nowhere to our viewers and everyone was completely shocked. And I can't even put into words how disgusting the comments were after that. There were conspiracy theories about the validity of his death. There were thousands and thousands of people blaming me for it. I saw comments on a daily basis telling me that it should have been me who took my life instead. And for years to follow, I got non-stop comments about how I was handling my grief. If I didn't talk about it, people said it seemed like I didn't care. It seemed like I was happy now, like I was just moving on with life. And anytime I did talk about my husband, I was told that I'm just using his death for clout and trying to get monetary gain out of talking about it. I thought the comments were bad before, but this absolutely broke me. When you lose someone to suicide, it's very natural to feel guilty. Almost every single person in Landon's life expressed to me that they felt that guilt. You ask yourself what you could have done differently, and especially being that I was the closest person in his life, I felt the brunt of that. I thought that if anyone could have prevented this, it was me. Every single night before bed, I would just run through my head everything that I could have done differently, every little choice I made along the way in the 5 years that I knew him. What step might have led to a different outcome? It was killing me. And then I go online and I see thousands of people agreeing that I'm to blame. Again, just fueling these awful self-beliefs. Meanwhile, no one had a clue about the abuse that I endured in that relationship. I wasn't ready to share it because I hadn't even processed it myself. And honestly, I still thought I deserved the abuse that I went through. Between all the negative things I was reading online about myself and the way he had treated me towards the end of our relationship, I just felt terrible. Like I deserved all of this. 6 months after he passed, there was some videos posted by some people that I barely knew. Landon and I had met them a few times, years and years and years ago, and they were no more than acquaintances to us. In these videos, a narrative was spun about me. Some things were shared that were just completely taken out of context, and other things were completely made up, just pulled out of thin air. In one of these videos, they had posted a phone call that they had recorded, and I did not know that they were recording said phone call. And I was explaining to them over the phone that they didn't know what they were talking about. They didn't know what Landon and I were going through in the months leading up to his death. And I told them, he was physically abusive towards me. You guys don't even know the half of the story. And then they took that phone call and me saying that and posted it online. And again, I hadn't talked about my abuse story yet. I hadn't shared that, but they posted that and shared it to everyone, as well as a bunch of lies about me. In these videos, I was accused of telling him to take his life, encouraging him to. My comments were flooded with death threats. Not only did this person spread those lies about me online, they also called the police in my area and reported that false information to them, which led to me talking to a detective again 6 months after he had passed. I had already been questioned prior, and it was ruled a suicide. The police found nothing at the scene that was suspicious about his death. To have to talk to a detective again and recount what happened that night, it was very re-traumatizing. After this instance occurred, I was deemed a danger to myself and sent to a treatment center. I didn't see my kids for over a month, and it was one of the hardest things I've ever done. I missed my daughter's first steps. I felt like I missed so much in those months, but it was also one of the best things that I ever did for myself. I realized that I will never win. I will always have people who hate me, people who don't know me, who have never met me, who think I'm the worst person alive. They exist. They're out there. And they've convinced themselves that I'm a pathological liar and a narcissist and a sociopath. Nothing I do will change their minds. And it doesn't matter. And as I continue to get help and to heal, I realize more and more that I was just a teenage girl. When all of that happened, I was a teenage girl, a child. Did I make some mistakes? Yes, as every teenage girl does. There's a lot of things that could have gone differently, but that does not mean that it was my fault. What happened is not my fault. And as an adult looking back, I can say that I think I handled it as best as any teenager could. I was in an impossible situation. I can see now that there are things I should have done differently, but I've forgiven myself for all of it. I was just a sad, scared, broken child who hadn't even healed from my own difficult childhood. A childhood that was cut short. Nothing I did was ever with the intention to hurt anyone. I was truly just trying my best. I thought I was doing what needed to be done. I tried to get Landon help. We all tried to get him help. I tried to protect my kids. I tried to give them a beautiful life with a beautiful home. I didn't realize I was doing so at the expense of our mental health. I didn't realize how destructive it had become. I didn't realize everything that was falling apart around me as I was obsessing over the opinions of strangers. I just wanted to have control over the things that I could control. And as I was going through trauma and abuse and panic attacks, I just thought that if I can convince everyone that I'm fine, then I'm still in control. But I wasn't in control. Everything about that situation was out of control, and I was in way over my head. Since then, I've realized that it doesn't matter, and I'm not gonna let strangers dictate the way that I see myself, so I block it out. I don't look at hate pages anymore. I block anyone who leaves a negative comment. This is my page and my space, and I get to control who interacts on here. I don't even think twice about blocking someone anymore. To some, that might seem like I refuse to hear anything bad about myself, or I'm reluctant to criticism, but they don't realize how critical I already am of myself. I am cautiously self-aware because I don't ever want to be in that situation again. I don't want to ignore the things that are wrong and live in denial. In my personal life, in therapy, in my relationships with my loved ones, I am so open to criticism. I welcome it even. I just refuse to hear it from people who don't know me. People who have no idea what my life is really like. People who don't have enough context to even have a fully formed opinion. It's taken a lot of work, and I've come a really, really long way, but it's still hard sometimes. Still to this day, there are people typing paragraph after paragraph of negativity and hate every single time I post a new video. They still exist, and they're obsessed with hating me. Meanwhile, I'm over here just worrying about myself and worrying about my girls. I trust myself. I trust my own moral compass, and I know that I'll always do what's best for us. I'm learning, I'm growing, and I'm not perfect, and I never will be. And I'm just so grateful now that I can focus on the positive. I'm not scrolling through my comments looking for the negative and ignoring. I can't wrap my head around the fact that I was ignoring the positive comments at one point. They didn't even matter to me because it felt like lies. I didn't even believe the positive things anymore. So now to be able to embrace that love and community, I truly mean it when I say that your support does mean so much. I still have some anxiety around reading my comments. I read the first few comments for the first few hours that I post a video, but the more time goes on, the hate comments start to roll in, and I kind of just put it down. But I do try to read all my DMs on Instagram and everything, and interact and respond to the people that I can. I wish I could be more involved without also being as involved with the negative comments as well. This is the only place where I can't block an account from watching my videos, so I don't do as much interacting on here as I do on my other social media platforms, where I can just block out the haters, but that doesn't mean that your comments go completely unseen and unnoticed and unappreciated. Once again, thank you to BetterHelp for sponsoring today's video. Don't forget to check out BetterHelp through my link and get 10% off your first month. BetterHelp.com/Cam&Fam. This video was kind of heavy. Brought back a lot of old feelings, things I kind of try not to think about anymore as much. But yeah, with all that being said, you know, watch what you say online. We're all real people. You know, that's a real person you're talking to. I have had some people reach out and tell me that they used to be really mean to me and they're sorry. They've grown up and matured and realized and apologized. And that means so much to me. Like I said, I've accepted that a lot of my haters just like will always hate me and they live in this crazy delusion about me. It feels so cringe like calling them like my haters. I don't know what else to call them. Like that's literally their job description. That's all they do. They eat, sleep, and breathe hating me. But you know, to hear later on from some of them that it was never about me. They were projecting, they were going through their own things in their own lives. It's something I would tell myself, be like, it's not even about me, you know, they're projecting. But to hear that firsthand, to have some of them be like, it wasn't about you and I was just projecting, like, it healed something in me, you know? So yeah, just be kind. That's all. Thank you guys so much for watching and I will see you in the next video, Camille.